Welcome back to Switch to Linux with another Distro Wars. Today we are going to compare two distros with the Pantheon desktop as a supporter has thus requested, and we're going to be looking at GeckoLinux, which is basically a slightly more user-friendly, a little bit more polished version of OpenSUSE, and we're going to be comparing this with ElementaryOS, of course, the creators of the Pantheon desktop. And so as they create this, since they created it, they might do a better implementation, but we'll go ahead and see. Maybe if it's that great of a desktop, it's going to look pretty much the same everywhere, but I don't know. Let's go ahead though and we'll start by having a look at their websites. So GeckoLinux, which is geckolinux.github.io, you can head on over here to the website, and it follows the OpenSUSE. So they have the static, which is OpenSUSE Leap, and they have the rolling, which is a OpenSUSE Tumbleweed based. And so what you're going to see here is they do a lot in OpenSUSE, when you first boot it up, there may be some things you need to get in there and adjust a lot of configurations. They pretty much set this up in a way that's going to be a lot more user-friendly. Out of the box, it's going to have more multimedia codecs set up already. And so there's a lot of things set up that's actually going to be a better plug the guy on in, and then there we go. We get into there. And for the comments that just came through on the live comment feed here, this is a brand new release. I think it might have been September, actually, or no, it was October. I think it was October. So only about a month ago, Gecko released Pantheon. And so that's, I think, when I got the email requesting I have a look at it. TLP, excuse me, for power management on laptops is pre-installed. They do some font rendering, so the fonts will look a lot nicer. And one of the things that they do, they have a whole section here about how they differ. One of them that they do is there is the additional package repository Pacman, not like Arch, P-A-C-M-A-N, but Pacman, P-A-C-K-M-A-N. And this is a alternate repository for OpenSUSE that's very similar to, if you're running Fedora, the Fusion packages. So it gets you more packages. It gets you things that are not necessarily as open source as the distro itself likes to be. So you can add these on. And then what Gecko's going to do is, if there's any package conflict, it takes from Pacman as a priority over OpenSUSE, versus OpenSUSE still prioritizes its own package repositories before Pacman. So that means that if you have some non-free applications you're trying to get working, you're probably going to be working better under GeckoLinux than under OpenSUSE. Of course, while we're on this page, one of the major differences you'll see here is that they use Zypper for their package management. So it's sudo zypper refresh and sudo zypper update or upgrade, excuse me, to run new software. And I'm not quite as familiar with Zypper, so I'm not going to attempt to get in there and talk a whole lot more about it. Just be aware, if you're going to be switching to OpenSUSE, the package management is a little bit different, so you're going to want to spend a little bit of time on the tutorials looking through it. I'm sure it's going to be simple and logical. It's just a little bit different than Elementary, which runs apt because it's based on Ubuntu. All right, so let's go ahead and have a look at, actually, before we get down there's several downloads. So each one of the different desktops you want, you have to grab the download. So the first grouping is your static. The second grouping are your rolling editions. And then we have the next editions are stable OS Leap based, combined with additional repositories for the latest version of desktop environments. So here we have the Pantheon, we have the Plasma, and we have the Budgie. Now, I will note I was not able to get this working. So they have a Pantheon version here under rolling. I was not able to get this working in a virtual machine. It messed up on all the graphic drivers and things like that. But you go down here and use the next edition, the Pantheon next edition on this one works perfectly. We will still get the notice. You'll see the notification that when we first boot into the system about the virtual machine hard video drivers, but it will otherwise work. Whereas the other one, you click OK and you're staring at a black screen. You have to force the machine down. So that's, I'm sure, an issue just with the virtual machine. But since we're testing these in a virtual environment, then we just have to account for that. Looking now at Elementary. Elementary is kind of designed, as you can see as their branding, is sort of designed as a Mac clone, although they do deny that. Not really. Some people have criticized it for some of the choices, like here, pay what you want for it. You can go ahead and enter 0. I will say, though, if you are using the Elementary desktop as your daily driver, please support the developers. They are actually doing an amazing job with it. There are going to be some things coming up in Elementary 6 that when 6 drops, I will be doing a review of it. They are doing a lot of cool things like dark themes, accent colors, a lot of things that's going to bring Pantheon into the next modern generation of desktops. But for now, we are still on 5.1. And on 5.1, there are a few things that I really like that they did. There's a few things that it's just like, what are you doing, Elementary team? And so this has led Elementary to be a fairly controversial distro, in that it's one of these ones where you either really love it or you really don't. And you kind of get this 50-50. So like every time I do a video where we're pointing out some of the critical things, it's like these 50-50 ratios where half the people are like, absolutely, this is why I don't want to use it. The other half of people are like, it's like Apple fanboys. They've actually managed to develop an Apple fanboy crowd, in addition to developing an Apple-looking distribution itself. Very interesting, hard to do, but they've accomplished it. Goal achieved. Tongue-in-cheek, though, Elementary is an excellent distribution. It just doesn't follow my workflow. That's why I don't generally use it, but hey, whatever that happens to be worth. Let's go ahead and get started and we're going to first head on over into Gecko. So you can see here our loading screen is just OpenSUSE's loading screen because, hey, it's basically just an OpenSUSE fixed for some of the things that you want to have done. Basically, they take the difficulty of installing OpenSUSE and spending a while getting stuff working out of the box. They pretty much take care of all of that. Here is our login screen, and you can see up here we have an Elementary logo. That's because this is Pantheon. And we do have an ICE window manager session, or we have a Pantheon and a Pantheon on X. My guess is maybe the Pantheon we're on here is going to be Wayland, I guess. Let's go ahead and get logged in, and you can see that this is the error that I'm getting here because I'm on a virtual machine. So here on Pantheon, we have a multitasker view, and we can switch between different windows here like this. I think can we use shortcut? I don't know. I don't know if we can use shortcut codes to do that back and forth or not. Okay, we do have a YAST Software Center over here. So if you're going to be doing application installation here on Gecko, you're going to be using YAST. So let's go ahead and let it do its thing. So YAST is definitely I like it. It's kind of a GUI for what the system's doing under the hood, and for that I kind of like it. There's some things it wants to update U code there, and I gotta remember exactly how to search for stuff. There we are. So if I want to search for evolution, for example, you can see we have some stuff over there. Here is if I wanted the evolution mail client. That's my favorite mail client. Let's go ahead and install this guy here. One of the other things that Gecko is going to do differing from OpenSUSE is it's going to give you the option of installing dependencies. And when you remove something, it will remove the unneeded dependencies. That's how you're going to install software. So you see, we don't really get a GUI software manager. So you have to be a little bit more comfortable with that style of manager. Honestly, it's not that difficult. Don't let that stop you from using it. Pre-installed application, we have Archive Manager, we have Calculator, Desktop Folders. Here is our Libre Draw. We have Firefox, Geary, Pigeon, Transmission. We have the full LibreOffice suite. And then just a couple of other little odds and ends. So not a lot of system bloat, not a lot of things in here that you wouldn't otherwise need. Let's go ahead and have a look at what our monitor looks like. So we're using 14% of our memory, and we are using 6 gigs of RAM in this guy here. So you can see it's doing just fine. You can toggle between the different views here in the menu back and forth here. The Gecko defaults to this menu here, which is probably going to be a little bit more a little bit more comfortable for some people. As far as getting everything up and running, this guy here should be fairly simple. We can see that we have the system settings from Pantheon here, but we're probably also going to have some YAST settings as well. And so we fall into one of these cases again where we have multiple different system settings panels. So this could get a little bit confusing for somebody that's not completely sure what they're doing, where I can manage printers over here in YAST, or I can manage printers in the Pantheon system settings. Now, if you're looking for the more user-friendly experience, just go into the elementary or the Pantheon settings rather than YAST. If you really want a little bit more understanding what's going on, then YAST is an excellent system. Just to point out that they do now have multiple settings panels because of this. All right, so overall, you're going to have a good experience. You're going to have less software available to you probably on Gecko than you will on Elementary, because Elementary is based on Ubuntu versus Gecko here being based on OpenSUSE. You're a little bit more limited in the software, and your software installation is not going to be quite as user-friendly. Running updates, I don't know if this is going to check for auto updates automatically and notify you and or install. We will get that feature in Elementary. So you will need to get into the habit of checking for updates if you're using Gecko. So there is what Gecko looks like, but out of the box here, you see we do have folder icons. I'm pretty sure we don't have folder icons on Elementary. We'll go ahead and double check that, but they've been generally against them. And so that's actually a neat feature if indeed that is still the case. We'll double check that. So there we have it. There is Gecko with Pantheon. So next we will have a look at our ElementaryOS and see how that looks. So one of the great things about Elementary is as you're booting into it, they've taken off all of the scary code that goes on the screen on startup. We just get this very nice, elegant startup experience where it does look really nice out of the box. We got that little bit of a brief login there for a second, but that's perfectly okay. Then we're going to land on the login screen. And over here, I actually added a new user because I wanted to show you guys on Pantheon when you first log in. This also applies to, this will also apply to your GeckoLinux, but the onboarding application runs once and I could not figure out how to run it again, so I just created another user. Easier to do that than try and research into it. So when you first boot into Elementary here on Pantheon, is you get this tool here, basic guides, community support, getting involved. You can enable or disable location services. You can turn on or turn off the night light, so making the colors of your desktop warmer at night to prevent eye strain and sleeplessness. So you have that option. Then you can automatically delete temporary files or trashed files. And then you can browse for some apps, and then there you have it. Now that we have landed on the desktop, we do not have any right click. We have no desktop icons, although somebody did say it is in the App Center. So let's go ahead and boot up the App Center. This one is going to give you a lot more user-friendly means of installing apps because we have the App Store here, basically. I forget the name of this one off the top, but this is definitely one of the better ones. So somebody actually, let's see, if I just do desktop icons, let's see, app editor. I don't know, there might be an application in there for desktop icons. Desktop folder, bring your desktop back to life. That must be it. I don't know if that's it or not, though. I don't know. We'll install it, see what happens. One of the things that I have criticized over Elementary over the years, whoa, new user. One of the things that I have criticized Elementary for over the years is that they started to, like, their model for the store and their App Center here is excellent, but they started to put warnings on some applications, which included some applications that are long-term, very safe, very respected in the open source community. So here we get this warning, and it says GIMP or GNU Image Manipulator Program is not curated by Elementary and has not been reviewed for security, privacy, or system integration. It may not receive bug fixes or feature updates. It may access or change system or personal files without permission. This is a very scary warning for somebody, and I think that this is completely inappropriate to have on an app that you get on the App Store built into the distribution itself, particularly for things that are very well-known applications. Now, the reason they do this is because, I'm going to not uninstall because that's just scaring me. The reason is they want everything in the system to look exactly the same. So if you pull up things, of course, they do light theme, dark theme on the movies, but if you pull up the various applications that are built into Pantheon, other than the fact that some are light and some are dark, they are remedying that in 6. You can see that they are otherwise all exactly themed the same. So if you're installing an application that doesn't fit the same curating that they do, it might change how the window borders look or things like that, and they don't want to be perceived as looking bad, i.e., they're trying to be Apple. And that's really a criticism that I think is a very valid criticism, because you're basically putting warning signs on extremely well-known and extremely respected applications in the FOSS community. And that is a problem to me. Let's see. I don't know if that desktop setting thing installed or not. I'm guessing that it did. Here you can see that our default here is going to be the icons. No big deal to switch back and forth between the list. Here's the desktop folder application we just installed. I have no idea if this is what somebody said to install. They just said in the middle of the comments there's something in the store that allows you to do that. So there we are. Hey, look at that. That's it. So hey, now we have desktop icons and stuff back on the desktop. So there we have that. Let's go ahead and see if there is a system monitor in here. We have HTOP. Let's go ahead and pull up HTOP and see how this guy is working. Are you loading HTOP? HTOP. Here, Mr. HTOP. Let's just do it that way. There we go. All right, so we're only running on 700 megabytes, so not too bad. Of course, being in the terminal we are an Ubuntu-based distribution, so you're just back to using apt. So very easy for anybody who has been in the Debian/Ubuntu world for any period of time. You're not going to have anything to do as far as that, but we do have a very nice GUI software manager in here as well. We have our default is the Epiphany browser. We have our mail application, so you can go ahead and create your mail there. But you can see how they've themed everything. It does kind of look like a knockoff Mac, but it does look very nice. It does look very elegant. So overall, this one is overall a very good system, very good setup, and it does look nice and concise. One of the things I've always said is an excellent thing about it is they've always had good parental controls, which is now called screen times and limits. So you can go ahead and set yourself screen times on weekdays and weekends. You can limit some applications. So there's a lot of different things that you can do. So if you are having a computer for a family-friendly setup where you need to have something going on like you need to have a computer in your house with young kids there and you want to restrict access or things that they have, then this one does make a good logical choice because you don't have to mess around with figuring out how to do any other parental controls. It's already built in from the ground up. So there is ElementaryOS. So Gecko versus Elementary, which one's better? Honestly, if you're boiling it down, talking about user friendliness, Elementary is going to take the cake on this one. It's going to be, it's an Ubuntu-based system. It's very well curated. It's very well polished. And they've done an excellent job of covering a lot of the bases for new users. This is actually going to get even better in the next version at Elementary 6, where we have the light theme, dark theme, accent colors, and things like that, bringing the Pantheon desktop up to up to the more modern standards as many other desktops. If you are wanting to learn more about Linux, learn how it works under the hood, or you just want to get away from the Ubuntu world, Gecko is an excellent distribution as well. It's going to be more user-friendly and work a little bit better than OpenSUSE is going to, just because they're not as dedicated to the 100% pure FOSS philosophy. They want to focus like Mint does, like Ubuntu does. Hey, let's get a system that works for the average user without having to fuss around with it a lot. So those are really your differences between the two. Which one's better, which one's worse? It really depends on which direction you're coming to it. But regardless, you can see here that they've done an excellent job in both cases. Pantheon, it's hard to tell. If I didn't tell you which one it was, it would be hard to tell which one's which. Elementary is just given away by its excellent app store, and Gecko is given away by the presence of Yast. Other than that, the integration of Pantheon is excellent, and it works out very well. So there you have it. There's no real solid answer one way or the other. So thanks for watching this video. Thanks also to the supporters who help support the channel, also fund great things like getting the capture card so we have much better video quality on this, and the other things that we have coming on down the pipeline. So thanks for coming along, guys, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux. Thank you for watching this video from Switched to Linux. This channel would not be possible without the backing of the program supporters scrolling on the screen now. You can be a supporter at Patreon at patreon.com/TOMM or at thinklifemedia.com. I also want to thank the open source community who creates such excellent software that makes producing this show possible. Please remember to support your software communities. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.